1. Winter 1263. Near the shadow of the castle, deep in the green woods, Sorka led her children through the gloom toward home. The two youngest rode the sturdy pony, with Tegan, barely 3, nodding with every plod. Weary, Sorka thought, after the excitement of Imbolc, the bonfires and the feasting. "Mind your sister, Eamon." At 5, Eamon's minding was a quick poke to wake up his baby sister before he went back to nibbling on the bannocks his mother had baked that morning. "Home in your bed soon," Sorka crooned when Tegan whined, "Home soon." She'd tarried too long in the clearing, she thought now, and though Imbolc celebrated the first stirrings in the womb of the Earth Mother, night fell too fast and hard in winter. A bitter one it had been, crackling with icy winds and blowing snow and ice-tipped rain. The fog had lived all winter, creeping, crawling, curtaining sun and moon. Too often in that wind, in that fog, she'd heard her name called, a beckoning she refused to answer. Too often in that world of white and grey, she'd seen the dark. She refused to truck with it. Her man had begged her to take the children and stay with his Finna while he waged his battles over that endless winter. As the wife of the Kjon Finna, every door would open for her, and in her own right, for what and who she was, welcome would always be made. But she needed her woods, her cabin, her place. She needed to be apart as much as she needed to breathe. She would tend her own, always, her home and her hearth, her craft and her duties, and most of all, the precious children she and Dahi had made. She had no fear of the night. She was known as the Dark Witch, and her power was great. But just then she felt sorely a woman, missing her man, yearning for the warmth of him, the fine, hard body pressed to hers in the cold and lonely dark. What did she care for war, for the greed and ambitions of all the petty kings? She only wanted her man home safe and whole. When he came home, they would make another baby, and she would feel that life inside her again. She mourned still the life she'd lost on a brutal black night when the first winter wind had blown through her woods like the sound of weeping. How many had she healed? How many had she saved? And yet, when the blood had poured from her, when that fragile life had flooded away, no magic, no offering, no bargain with the gods had saved it. But then she knew too well healing others came more easily than healing self, and the gods as fickle as a giddy girl in May. "Look! Look!" Branna, her eldest at 7, danced off the hard path with their big hound on her heels. "The blackthorn's blooming! It's a sign!" She saw it now, the hint of those creamy white blossoms among the black, tangled branches. Her first bitter thought was while Brigid, the fertility-bringing goddess, blessed the earth, her own womb lay empty inside her. Then she watched her girl, her first pride, sharp-eyed, pink-cheeked, spinning through the snow. She'd been blessed, Sorka reminded herself, 3 times blessed. "It's a sign, Ma!" Dark hair flying with every spin, Branna lifted her face to the dimming light. "Of coming spring!" "Aye, it's that. A good sign." As had been the gloomy day, as the old hag Cailleach couldn't find firewood without the bright sun, so spring would come early, so the legend went. The blackthorn bloomed bright, tempting the flowers to follow. She saw the hope in her child's eyes, as she'd seen it at the bonfire in other eyes, heard it in the voices, and Sorka searched inside herself for that spark of hope, but found only dread. He would come again tonight. She could already sense him, lurking, waiting, plotting. Inside, she thought, inside the cabin behind the bolted door, with her charms laid out to protect her babies, to protect herself. She clucked to the pony to quicken his pace, whistled for the dog. "Come along now, Branna. Your sister's all but asleep already. Da comes home in the spring." Though her heart stayed heavy, Sorka smiled and took Branna's hand. "He does that, home by Beltana, and we'll have a great feast. Can I see him tonight, with you, in the fire?" There's much to do. The animals need tending before bed.
For a moment?
Branna tipped her face back, her eyes grey as smoke, pleading,
Just to see him for a moment, then I can dream he's home again.
As she would herself, Sorka thought, and now her smile came from her heart. For a moment, Minine, when the work's done.
And you take your medicine?
Sorka lifted her brows. Will I, then? Do I look to you as if I'm in need of it?
You're still pale, Ma.
Branna kept her voice beneath the wind. Just a wee bit tired, and you're not to worry. Here, now, hold on to your sister, Eamon. Alistair smells home, and she's likely to fall off.
She rides better than Eamon, and me as well.
Aye, well, the horse is her talisman, but she's near sleeping on his back. The path turned, the pony's hooves rang on the frozen ground as he trotted toward the shed beside the cabin. Eamon, see to Alistair, an extra scoop of green tonight. You had your fill, didn't you? She said as her boy began to mutter. He grinned at her, handsome as a summer morning, and though he could hop down as quick as a rabbit, he held out his arms. He'd always been one for a cuddle, Sorka thought, hugging him as she lifted him down. She didn't have to tell Branna to start her chores. The girl ran the house nearly as well as her mother. Sorka took Tegan in her arms, murmuring, soothing as she carried her into the cabin. It's dreaming time, my darling.
I'm a pony, and I gallop all day.
Oh, aye, the prettiest of ponies, and the fastest of all. The fire, down to embers after the hours away, barely held back the cold. As she carried the baby to bed, Sorka held out a hand to the hearth. The flames leapt up, simmered over the ashes. She tucked Tegan into the bunk, smoothed her hair, bright as sunlight like her father's, and waited until her eyes, deep and dark like her mother's, closed. Sweet dreams only, she murmured, touching the charm she'd hung over the beds of her babies. Safe and sound through all the night. All you are and all you see hold you through dark into light. She kissed the soft cheek, and as she straightened, winced at the pull in her belly. The ache came and went, but came more strongly as the winter held, so she would take her daughter's advice and make a potion. Bridget, on this your day, help me heal. I have 3 children who need me. I cannot leave them alone. She left Tegan sleeping and went to help the older children with the chores. When night fell, too fast, too soon, she secured the door before repeating her nighttime ritual with Eamon.
I'm not tired, not a bit,
he claimed as his eyes drooped. I can see that. I see you're wide awake and raring. Will you fly again tonight, Vic?
I will, high in the sky. Will you teach me more tomorrow? Can I take Robard out come morning?
That I will, and that you can. The hawk is yours, and you see him, you know him, and feel him. So, rest now. She ruffled his bark-brown hair, kissed his eyes, wild and blue as his father's, closed. When she came down from the loft, she found Branna already by the fire, with the hound that was hers. Glowing, Sorka thought, with health, thank the goddess, and with the power she didn't yet fully hold or understand. There was time for that, she prayed. There was time yet for that.
I made the tea, Branna told her, just as you taught me. You'll feel better, I think, after you drink it.
Do you tend me now, McCree? Smiling, Sorka picked up the tea, sniffed it, and nodded. You have the touch, that you do. Healing is a strong gift. With it, you'll be welcome and needed wherever you go.
I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be here with you and Da and Eamon and Tegan always.
One day you may look beyond our wood, and there will be a man. Branna snorted.
I don't want a man. What would I do with a man?
Ah, well, that's a story for another day. She sat with her girl by the fire, wrapped a wide shawl around them both, and drank her tea. And when Branna touched her hand, she turned hers over, linked fingers. All right, then, but for only a moment. You need your bed.
Can I do it? Can I bring the vision?
See what you have, then. Do what you will.
See him, Branna, the man you came from. It's love that brings him.
Sorka watched the smoke swirl, the flames leap and then settle. Good, she thought, impressed. The girl learned so quickly. The image tried to form in the hollows and valleys of the flame, a fire within a fire. Silhouettes, movements, and for a moment the murmur of voices from so far away. She saw the intensity on her daughter's face, the light sheen of sweat from the effort. Too much, she thought, too much for one so young. Here now, she said quietly, we'll do it together. She pushed her power out, merged it with Branna's. A fast roar, a spin of smoke, a dance of sparks, then clear. And he was there, the man they both longed for, sitting at another fire within a circle of stones, his bright hair braided to fall over the dark cape wrapped around his broad shoulders. The delag of his rank, pinned to it, glittered in the light of the flames. The brooch she'd forged for him in fire and magic, the hound, the horse, the hawk.
He looks weary,
Branna said, and leaned her head against her mother's arm.
But so handsome, the most handsome of men.
That he is, handsome and strong and brave, and oh, she longed for him.
Can you see when he comes home?
Not all can be seen. Perhaps when he's closer I'll have a sign. But tonight we see he's safe and well, and that's enough.
He thinks of you.
Branna looked over into her mother's face.
I can feel it. Can he feel us thinking of him?
He hasn't the gift, but he has the heart, the love, so perhaps he can. To bed now. I'll be up soon.
The blackthorn is blooming, and the old hag did not see the sun today. He comes home soon.
Rising, Branna kissed her mother. The dog trotted up the ladder with her. Alone, Sorka watched her love in the fire, and alone she wept. Even as she dried her tears, she heard it, the beckoning. He would comfort her, he would warm her, such were his seductive lies. He would give her all she could want and more. She had only to give herself to him. I will never be yours.
You will. You are. Come now, and know all the pleasures, all the glory, all the power.
He will never have me, or what I hold inside me. Now the image in the fire shifted, and he came into the flames, Kavan, whose power and purpose were darker than the winter night, who wanted her, her body, her soul, her magic. The sorcerer desired her, for she felt his lust like sweaty hands on her skin. But more she knew, he coveted her gift. His greed for it hung heavy in the air. In the flames he smiled, so handsome, so ruthless. I will have you, Sorka the Dark. You and all you are. We are meant, we are the same. No, she thought, we are not the same, but as day to night, light to dark, where the only merging comes in shadows. So alone you are, and burdened. Your man leaves you a cold bed. Come warm yourself in mine. Feel the heat. Make that heat with me. Together we rule all the world. Her spirit sagged, the ache and pull inside her twisted toward pain. So she rose, let the warm wind come to blow through her hair, let the power pour in until she shone with it, and saw, even in the flames, the lust and greed in Kavan's face. Here is what he wanted, she knew, the glory that rushed through her blood, and this was what he would never have. Know my mind and feel my power, then and now and every hour. You offer me your dark desire. Come to me in smoke and fire. Betray my blood, my babes, my man. To rule o'er all, only take your hand. So my answer to thee comes through wind and sea. Rise, maiden, mother, hag in trinity. As I will, so mote it be. She threw out her arms, released the fury, fully female, whirled in, flung it toward the beat of his heart. An instant of pure, wild pleasure erupted inside her when she heard his cry of rage and pain, when she saw that rage and pain burst onto his face against the flames. Then the fire was just a fire, simmering low for the night, bringing a bit of warmth against the bitter. Her cabin was just a cabin, quiet and dim, and she was just a woman, alone, with her children sleeping. She slumped down in the chair, wrapping an arm around the tearing in her belly. Kavan was gone, for now, but her fear remained, of him, and that if no potion or prayer healed her body, she would leave her children motherless, defenseless. She woke with her youngest curled with her, found comfort even as she shifted to rise for the day.
Ma, stay.
There now, my sunbeam, I have work, and you should be in your own bed.
The bad man came. He killed my ponies.
A fist of panic squeezed Sorka's heart, Kavan touching her children, their bodies, their minds, their souls. It brought her unspeakable fear, unspeakable rage. Just a dream, my babby. She cuddled Tegan close, rocked and soothed. Just a dream. But dreams had power and risks.
My ponies screamed, and I couldn't save them. He set them afire, and they screamed. Alistair came and knocked the bad man down. I rode away on Alistair, but I couldn't save the ponies. I'm afraid of the bad man in the dream.
He won't hurt you. I'll never let him hurt you. Only dream ponies. Eyes tightly closed, she kissed Tegan's bright tousled hair, her cheeks. We'll dream of more, green ones and blue ones.
Green ponies.
Oh, aye, green as the hills. Snuggling, Sorka lifted a hand, circled her finger, twirled it until ponies, blue ones, green ones, red ones, yellow ones, danced in the air above their heads. Listening to her youngest giggle, Sorka stored up her fears, her anger, closed them in with determination. He would never harm her children. She would see him dead and herself with him before she allowed it. I'll the ponies to their oats now, and you come with me then, and we'll break our fast as well.
Is there honey?
Aye. The simple wish for a treat made Sorka smile. There'll be honey for good girls.
I'm good.
You are the purest and sweetest of hearts. Sorka gathered up Tegan, and her baby held tight, whispered in her ear.
The bad man said he would take me first, as I'm the youngest and weak.
He'll never take you. I swear it on my life. She eased Tegan back so her daughter could see the truth of it in her eyes. I swear it to you. And my darling, weak you're not, and never will be. So she fed the fire, poured honey on the bread, and made the tea and oats. They'd all need their strength for what she would do that day, what she needed to do. Her boy came down from the loft, his hair tousled and tangled from sleep. He rubbed his eyes, sniffed the air like a hound.
I fought the black sorcerer. I didn't run.
Inside her breast, Sorka's heart kicked to a gallop. You dreamed. Tell me.
I was at the turn of the river where we keep the boat, and he came, and I knew him for a sorcerer, a black one, because his heart is black.
His heart?
I could see in his heart, though he smiled, friendly-like, and offered me some honey cake. Here, lad, says he, I've a fine treat for you. But the cake was full of worms and black blood inside it. I could tell it was poisoned.
You saw inside his heart, and inside the cake in the dream.
I did, I promise.
I believe you. So her little man had more than she'd known.
I said to him, eat the cake yourself, for it's death in your hand. But he threw it aside, and the worms crawled out of it and burned to ashes. He thought he would drown me in the river, but I threw rocks at him. Then Robert came.
Did you call the hawk in your dream?
I wished for him, and he came, and he flashed out with his talons. The black sorcerer went away like smoke in the wind, and I waked in my bed.
Sorka drew him close, stroked his hair. She'd unleashed her fury at Kavan, so he came after her children. You're brave and true, Eamon. Now break your fast. We've the stock to tend. Sorka moved closer to Branna, who stood at the base of the ladder. And you as well.
He came into my dream. He said he would make me his bride. He tried to touch me. Here.
Pale with the telling, she covered her chest with her hands.
And here.
Then between her legs. Shaking, she pressed her face to her mother when Sorka embraced her.
I burned him. I don't know how, but I made his fingers burn. He cursed me and made fists with his hands. Cahill came leaping onto the bed, snarling, snapping. Then the man was gone. But he tried to touch me, and he said he'd make me his bride, but...
Rage woke inside the fear. He never will. My oath on it. He'll never put his hands on you. Eat now, and eat all. There's much work to do. She sent them all out to feed and water the animals, clean the stalls, milk the fat cow. Alone, she prepared herself, gathered her tools, the bowl, the bells, the candles, the sacred knife, and the cauldron. She chose the herbs she'd grown and dried, and the 3 copper bracelets Dorothy had bought her at a long-ago summer fair. She went out, drew deep of the air, lifted her arms to stir the wind, and called the hawk. He came on a cry that echoed over the trees and the hills beyond that, which caused servants in the castle by the river to cast their eyes up. His wings, spread wide, caught the glint of the winter sun. She lifted her arms so those wicked talons clutched on her leather glove. Her eyes looked into his, and his into hers. Swift and wise, strong and fearless, you are Aemon's, but mine as well. You will serve what comes from me, mine will serve what comes from you. I have need of you, and ask this for my son, for your master and your servant. She showed him the knife, and his eyes never wavered. Robard, I ask of thee a drop of blood from your breast ×3, a single feather from your great wing, and for these gifts your praises I sing. To guard my son, this is done. She pricked him, held the small flask for the 3 drops, plucked a single feather. My thanks, she whispered. Stay close. He lifted from her hand, but soared only to the branch of a tree, and closing his wings, watched. She whistled for the dog. Cahill watched her with love, with trust. You are Branna's, but mine as well, she began, and repeated the ritual, gathering the 3 drops of blood and a bit of fur from his flank. Last, she moved into the shed, into the sound of her children laughing as they worked. She took strength from that, and stroked her hand down the pony's face. Tegan raced over when she saw the knife. Don't! I do him no harm. He is yours, but mine as well. He will serve what comes from me and you, as you will serve what comes from him. I have need of you, Alistair, and ask this for my daughter, for your mistress and your servant.
Don't cut him, please!
Only a prick, only a scratch, and only if he consents. Alistair, I ask of thee a drop of blood from your breast ×3, a bit of hair from your pretty mane, and for these gifts I praise your name. To guard my little one, this is done. Just 3 drops, Sorka said quietly as she pricked with the tip of the knife. Just a bit of his mane, and here now. Though Alistair stood quiet, his eyes wise and calm, Sorka laid her hands on the small, shallow cut, pushed her magic into it to heal, for her daughter's tender heart. Come with me now, all of you. She lifted Tegan onto her hip, led the way back into the house. You know what I am. I have never hidden it. You know you carry the gift, each of you. I have always told you. Your magic is young and innocent. One day it will be strong and quick. You must honour it. You must use it to harm none, for the harm you do will come back on you 3-fold. Magic is a weapon, aye, but not one to be used against the innocent, the weak, the guiltless. It is a gift and a burden, and you will all carry both. You will all pass both to those who come from you. Today you learn more. Heed me and what I do. Watch, listen, know. She moved to Branna first. Your blood and mine with the blood of the hound. Blood is life, its lass is death. 3 drops from thee, 3 draps from me, and with the hounds the charm is bound. Branna placed her hand in her mother's without hesitation, held steady as Sorka pricked her with the knife. My bye, she said to Eamon. 3 drops from thee, 3 drops from me, and from the hawk's heart to seal 3 parts. Though his lips trembled, Eamon held out his hand. And my baby, don't fear. Her eyes shone with tears, but Tegan watched her mother solemnly as she held out her hand. 3 draps from thee, 3 draps from me, with the horse as your guide, the magic's ride. She mixed the blood, kissed Tegan's little hand. There now, that's done. She lifted the cauldron, slid the vials into the pouch at her waist. Bring the rest. This is best done outside. She chose her spot on the hard ground, with snow lumped in the cool shadows of the trees. Should we get firewood? Eamon asked her. Not for this. Stand here together. She moved beyond them, called on the goddess, on the earth, the wind, the water, and the fire, and cast the circle. The low flame bubbled over the ground, rounded until end met end, and inside warmth rose like spring. This is protection and respect. Evil cannot come within, dark cannot defeat the light, and what is done within the circle is done for good, is done for love. First the water, of sea, of sky. She cupped her hands, opened them over the cauldron. Water blue as a sun-kissed lake poured out, poured in. And the earth, our land, our hearts. She flicked one hand, then the other, and rich brown earth spilled into the cauldron. And the air, song of the wind, breath of body. She opened her arms and blew, and like music the air swept in with earth and water. No, the fire, flame and heat, the beginning, the ending. She glowed, the air around her simmering, her eyes burning blue as she threw her arms up, cast her hands down. Fire erupted in the cauldron, shooting flame, dancing sparks. These your father gave me. They are a sign of his love, a sign of mine. You are all 3 of that love. She cast the 3 copper bracelets into the flame, and circling it added fur and hair and feather, added blood. The goddess gifts to me the power, so I stand in this place in this hour. I cast the charm, protect from harm my children 3 and all that comes from them, from me. The horse, the hawk, the hound, by blood they are ever bound, to shield, to serve, from life to life, in joy, in sorrow, in health, in strife, in earth, in air, in flame, in sea. As I will, so mote it be. Sorka lifted her arms high, turned her face to the sky. The fire shot up in a tower, red and gold, wild blue in its core as it spun and twisted into the cold winter sky. The earth shook, the icy water in the stream went to roaring, and the wind howled like a wolf on the hunt. Then it stilled, it died, and there were just 3 children, hand gripping hand, watching their mother, pale as snow now, sway. Sorka shook her head as Branna started toward her. Not yet. Magic is work. It gives and it takes. It must be finished. She reached in the cauldron, drew out 3 copper amulets. To Branna, the hound. To Eamon, the hawk. To Tegan, the horse. She slipped an amulet over each child's head. These are your signs and your shields. They protect you. You must keep them with you always, always. You cannot touch what you are if you have your shield, if you believe its power, believe in mine and your own. One day you will pass this to one who comes from you. You'll know which. You'll tell your children the story and sing the old songs. You'll take the gift and give the gift. Tegan admired hers, smiled as she turned the small oval in the sunlight.
That's pretty. It looks like Alistair.
It's of him, and of you, and of me, and your father, of your brother and your sister. And why shouldn't it be pretty? She lowered to kiss Tegan's cheek. I have such pretty children. She could barely stand and had to bite back a moan as Branna helped her to her feet. I must close the circle. We must take everything inside now. We'll help you, Eamon said, and took his mother's hand. With her children, she closed the circle, let them carry the tools into the house.
You need to rest. Sit by the fire.
Branna pulled her mother to the chair.
I'll fix you a potion.
Aye, and a strong one. Show your brother and sister how it's done. She smiled when Tegan wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, when Eamon spread a blanket over her lap. But when she started to reach for the cup Branna brought, her daughter held it back, then squeezed at the flesh around the cut on her hand until 3 drops of blood plopped into the cup.
Blood is life,
Sorka sighed. It is, aye, it is. Thank you. She drank the potion and slept. 2. For a week, then 2, she was strong, and her power held. Kavan battered at it. He pushed, he slithered, but she held him back. The blackthorn bloomed, and the snowdrops, and the light turned more towards spring than winter. Each night Sorka watched for Dahi in the fire. When she could, she spoke to him, risked sending her spirit to him to bring back his scent, his voice, his touch, and to leave hers with him, so to strengthen them both. She told him nothing of Kavan. The magics were her world. His sword, his fist, even his warrior's heart could not defeat such as Kavan. The cabin, hers before she'd taken Dahi as her man, was hers to defend, the children they'd made together hers to protect. And still she counted down the days to Beltane, to the day she would see him riding home again. Her children thrived, and they learned. Some voice in her head urged her to teach them all she could as quickly as she could. She didn't question it. She spent hours at night in the light of the tallow and the fire, writing out her spells, her recipes, even her thoughts, and when she heard the howl of the wolf or the beat of the wind, she ignored it. Twice she was called to the castle for a healing, and took her children so they could play with the other youths, so to keep them close, and to let them see the respect afforded the dark witch, for the name and all it held would be their legacy. But each time they journeyed home, she needed a potion to revive the strength sapped from the healing magics she dispensed to those in need. Though she yearned for her man, and for the health she feared would never be fully hers again, she schooled her children daily in the craft. She stood back when Eamon called to Robard, more his than hers now, as it should be, watched with pride as her baby rode Alistair, as fierce as any warrior, and knew with both pride and sorrow how often Branna and her faithful Cahal patrolled the woods. The gift was there, but so was childhood. She made certain there was music and games, and as much innocence as she could preserve. They had visitors, those who came for charms, for salves, who sought answers to questions, who hoped for love or fortune. She helped those she could, took their offerings, and watched the road, always watched the road, though she knew her love was still weeks from home. She took them out on the river in the little boat their father had built on a day of easy winds, when the sky held more blue than grey.
They say witches can't travel over water,
Eamon announced. Is that what they say, then? Sorka laughed, lifted her face to the breeze. Yet here we are, sailing fine and true.
It's Donal who says it, from the castle.
Saying it, even believing it, doesn't make it the truth.
Eamon made a frog fly for Donal. It was like boasting.
Eamon gave his younger sister a dark look, would have added a poke or pinch if his mother hadn't been watching. Flying frogs might be fun, but it isn't wise to spend your magic for amusements. That was practice. You might practice catching us some fish for supper. Not that way. Sorka warned as her son lifted his hands over the water. Magic isn't every answer. A body must know how to fend for himself without it as well. A gift should never be squandered on what you can do with your wit and your hands or your back. I like to fish.
I don't,
Branna brooded as the little boat plied the river.
You sit and wait and wait. I'd rather hunt. Then you have the woods, and we could have rabbit for dinner.
Tomorrow's as good as today for that. We'll look for fish tonight, if your brother has luck and skill, and perhaps a potato pie. Bored, Branna handed her line to her sister and gazed out over the water to the castle with its great stone walls.
Did you not want to live there, Ma? I heard the women talking. They said we were all welcome.
We have our home, and though it was just a hut once, it stood longer than those walls. It stood when the O'Connors ruled, before the House of Burke. Kings and princes come and go, Manine, but home is always.
I like the look of it, so grand and tall, but I like our woods better.
She leaned her head on her mother's arm a moment.
Could the Burkes have taken our home?
They could have tried, but they were wise to respect magic. We have no fight with them, nor they with us.
If they did, Da would fight them, and so would I.
She slid her gaze toward her mother.
Dervla from the castle told me Cavan was banished.
Thought you knew already.
Aye, but she said he comes back, and he lies with women. He whispers in their ear, and they think he's their lawful husband. But in the morning they know, they weep. She said you gave the women charms to keep him away, but he lured one of the kitchen maids away into the bog. No one can find her.
She knew of it, just as she knew the kitchen maid would never be found. He toys with them, and preys on the weak to feed himself. His power is black and cold. The light and the fire will always defeat him.
But he comes back. He scratches at the windows and doors.
He can't enter. But she felt a chill through her blood. Just then Eamon let out a shout, and when he yanked up his line, a fish flashed silver in the sunlight. "Luck and skill," Sorka said with a laugh as she grabbed the net.
"I want to catch one."
Tegan leaned eagerly over the water as if searching for a likely fish. "We'll hope you do, as we'll need more than one, even such a fine one. It's good work, Eamon." They caught 3 more, and if she helped her baby a bit, the magic was for love. She rowed them back with the sun sparkling, the breeze dancing, and the air full of her children's voices. A good fine day, she thought, and spring so close she could almost taste it. "Run on home then, Eamon, and clean those fish. You can get the potatoes started, Branna, and I'll see to the boat."
"I'll stay with you."
Tegan snuck her hand into her mother's.
"I can help."
"That you can, as we'll need to fetch some water from the stream."
"Do fish like us to catch and eat them?"
"I can't say they do, but it's their purpose."
"Why?"
And why, Sorka thought as she secured the boat, had been Tegan's first word. Didn't the powers put the fish in the water and give us the wit to make the nets and lines?
"But they must like swimming more than the fire."
"I expect so we should be mindful and grateful when we eat."
"What if we didn't catch and ate them?"
"We'd be hungry more often than not."
"Do they talk under the water?"
"Well, no, I've never had a conversation with a fish. Here now." Sorka pulled Tegan's cloak more closely around her. "It's getting cold." She glanced up, saw the clouds rolling over the sun. "We may have a storm tonight. Best get home." As she straightened came the fog. Grey and dirty, it slunk like a snake over the ground and smothered the sparkle of the day. Not a storm coming, Sorka realized. The threat was here already. She pushed Tegan behind her as Cavan rose out of the fog. He wore black, picked through with silver like stars against a midnight sky. His hair waved to his shoulders, an ebony frame for his hard and beautiful face. His eyes, dark as a gypsy's heart, held both power and pleasure as he scraped them over Sorka. She felt them like bold hands on her skin. Around his neck he wore a large silver pendant shaped like a sun, with a fat jewel, a glinting red eye, in its centre. And this was new, she thought, and sensed its black power.
"My lady,"
he said, and bowed to her. "You have no welcome here."
"I walk where I will, and what do I see but a woman and her small, pretty child alone? Treats for brigands and wolves. You have no man to see you safe, Sark the Dark. I will escort you."
"I see myself safe. Begone, Cavan. You waste your time and powers here. I will never submit to such as you."
"But you will submit. Joining with me is your destiny. I've seen it in the glass."
"You see lies and desires, not truth or destiny." He only smiled, and like his voice, his smile held seduction.
"Together we'll rule this land, and any others we wish. You will wear fine cloth in bright colours, and drape your skin in jewels."
He swirled his hands. Tegan gasped when she saw her mother wearing the rich red of royalty, the sparkle of jewels, and a gold crown studded with them. Just as quickly, Sorka flicked a wrist and was once again draped in her simple black wool. "I have no need, no wish for your colours and shine. Leave me and mine, or you will feel my wrath." But he laughed, the sound rolling from him in smooth and terrible delight.
"Is it a wonder, my heart, that I want none but you? Your fire, your beauty, your power, all meant to be mine."
"I am Dahi's woman, and will ever be." With a grunt of disgust, Cavan flicked his fingers.
"Dahi cares more for his raids, his games, his petty little wars than for you or the whelps you bore him. How many times has the moon waxed and waned since he last shared your bed? You grow cold in the night, Sorka. I feel it. I will show you pleasures you've never known, and I will make you more than you are. I will make you a goddess."
Fear tried to crawl into her like the fog crawled over the ground. "I would die by my own hand before being bedded by you. You only crave more power,
and you're a fool not to. Together we will crush all who stand against us. Live as gods, be as gods, and for this I will give you what your heart most desires."
"You don't know my heart."
"A babe in your belly to replace the loss. My son, born of you, more powerful than any has known before or will again."
Grief for the loss struck, and fear, a terrible fear for the tiny seed of want in her for what he offered, a life growing in her, strong and real. Sensing that fear, Cavan stepped closer.
"A son," he murmured, "right in your womb, thriving there, born strong and glorious like no other. Give me your hand, Sorka, and I will give you your heart's desire."
She trembled for a moment only, as, oh, by all the gods, she craved that life. And as she trembled, Tegan leaped out from behind her skirts. She hurled a rock, striking Cavan on the temple. A thin line of blood, dark red, trickled down his pale skin. His eyes went fierce as he swung out. Before the blow could land, Sorka shoved him back with sheer force of will. She pulled Tegan up into her arms. Wind whipped around her now, one born of her own fury. "I will kill you 1,000 times. I will give you agony for 10,000 years if you lay hands on my child. I swear this on all I am." "You threaten me, you and your runt." He fixed his eyes on Tegan's face, and his smile spread like death.
"Pretty little runt, bright as a fish in the water, shall I catch and eat you?"
Though she clung to Sorka, though she shivered, Tegan didn't cower. "Go away!" In fury and fear, her young, untried power slapped out, struck as true as the stone. Now blood ran from Cavan's mouth, and his smile became a snarl.
"First you, then your brother, your sister. A bit of ripening first, for she too will bear me sons. With a fingertip, he smeared the blood on his face, crossed it over the amulet. "I would have spared them for you," he told Sorka. "Now you will see their deaths." Sorka pressed her lips to Tegan's ear. "He can't hurt you," she began in a whisper, then watched in horror as Cavan changed. His body shifted, twisted like the fog. The amulet glowed, the gems spun until his eyes sparked as red as the stone. Black hair covered his body, claws sprang from his fingers, and as he seemed to spill over onto the ground, he threw back his head. He howled. Slowly, carefully, Sorka set Tegan down again behind her. "He can't hurt you." She prayed it was true, that the magic she'd imbued into the copper sign would hold even against this form, for surely he'd bartered his soul for this dark art. The wolf bared its teeth and sprang. She pushed back, thrusting out her hands, drawing up her strength so that pure white light shot from her palms. When it struck the wolf, it screamed almost like a man, but it came again and again, leaping, snapping, its eyes feral and horribly human. The claws lashed out, caught Sorka's skirts, tore them. Then it was Tegan's scream that sliced the air. "Go away! Go away!" She pelted the wolf with rocks that turned to balls of fire as they struck, so the fog smelled of burning flesh and fur. The wolf lunged again, howling still. Tegan tumbled back as Sorka slashed down at it. The little girl's cloak fell open. From the copper sign she wore burst a blue flame, straight and sharp as an arrow. It struck the wolf's flank, scored a mark shaped like a pentagram. On an agonized cry, the wolf flew back. As it pawed and snapped at the air, Sorka gathered all she had, hurled her light, her hope, her power. The world went white, blinding her. Desperate, she groped for Tegan's hand as she fell to her knees. The fog vanished. All that remained of the wolf was scorched earth in its shape. Weeping, Tegan clutched at her mother, burrowed into her. Just a child now, frightened of monsters all too real. "There, no, it's gone. You're safe. We need to go home. We need to be home, my babby." But she lacked the strength even to stand. She could have wept herself to be brought so low. Once she could have summoned the power to fly through the woods with her child in her arms. Now her limbs trembled, her breath burned, and her heart beat so fast and hard it pounded her temples. If Cavan gathered himself, came back. "Run home! You know the way! Run home! I'll follow!" "I stay with you." "Tegan, do as I say!" "No, no!" Knuckling her eyes, Tegan stubbornly shook her head. "You come! You come!" Gritting her teeth, Sorka managed to get to her feet, but after 2 steps she simply sank to her knees again. "I can't do it, my baby. My legs won't carry me." "Alistair can. I'll call him and he'll carry us home." "Can you call him from all this way?" "He'll come very fast." Tegan rose on her sturdy legs, lifted her arms. "Alistair, Alistair, brave and free, heed my call and come to me. Run swift, run true to find the one who needs you." Tegan bit her lip, turned to her mother. "Branna helped me with the words. Are they good?" "They're very good." Young, Sorka thought, simple and pure. "Say it twice more. 3 is strong magic." Tegan obeyed, then came back to stroke her mother's hair. "You'll be well again when we're home. Branna will make you tea." "Aye, that's what she'll do. I'll be fine again when I'm home." She thought it was the first time she'd lied to her child. "Find me a good strong stick. I think I could lean on it and walk a ways." "Alistair will come." Though she doubted it, Sorka nodded. "We'll meet him. Find me a sturdy stick, Tegan. We have to be home before dark." Even as Tegan scrambled up, they heard the hoofbeats. "He's coming! Alistair! We're here! We're here!" She called her guide, Sorka thought, and a sharp stab of pride pierced her fatigue. As Tegan ran forward to meet the horse, Sorka gathered herself again, pushed painfully to her feet. "There you are, a prince of horses." Grateful, Sorka pressed her face to Alistair as he nuzzled her. "Can you help me mount?" she asked Tegan.
He will. I taught him a trick. I was saving it for when Da comes home. Kneel, Alistair, kneel.
Giggling now, Tegan swept a hand down. The horse bowed his head, then bent his forelegs and knelt. Oh, my clever, clever girl.
It's a good trick.
A fine trick, a fine one indeed. Grasping the mane, Sorka pulled herself onto the horse. Nimble as a cricket, Tegan leapt on in front of her.
You hold on to me, Ma. Alistair and I will get us home.
Sorka gripped the little girl's waist, put her trust in the child and the horse. Every stride of the gallop brought pain, but every stride brought them closer to home. When they neared the clearing, she saw her older children, Branna dragging her grandfather's sword, Eamon holding a dagger, racing toward them. So brave, too brave. Back to the house! Back now! Run back!
The bad one came,
Tegan shouted,
and he made himself into a wolf. I threw rocks at him, Eamon, like you did.
The children's voices, the questions, the excitement, the licks of fear circled like echoes in Sorka's head. Sweat soaked her. Once again she grasped Alistair's mane, lowered herself to the ground, swayed as the world went grey.
Ma's sick. She needs her tea.
Inside, Sorka managed. Bolt the door. She heard Branna giving orders, clipping them out like a chieftain.
Fetch water. Stir the fire.
And felt as if she floated inside, into her chair, where her body collapsed. A cool cloth on her head, warm, potent liquid easing down her throat, a quieting of the pain, a clearing of the mists. Rest now. Branna stroked her hair. I'm better. You have a strong gift for healing. Tegan said the wolf burned up. No, we hurt him, aye, we hurt him. But it lives. He lives.
We'll kill it. We'll set a trap and kill it.
It may come to that when I'm stronger. He has more than he did, this shifting of shapes. I can't say what price he paid for the power, but it would be dear. Your sister marked him. Here. Sorka clutched a hand on her left shoulder. The shape of a pentagram. Watch for this. Be wary of this, and any who bear that mark.
We will. You don't be fretting now. We'll make the supper, and you'll feel stronger for eating and resting.
You'll make a charm for me, exactly as I say. Make the charm and bring it to me. Supper can wait until that's done.
Will it make you stronger?
Aye. Branna made the charm, and Sorka hung it around her neck next to her heart. She sipped more potion, and though her appetite was small, forced herself to eat. She slept and dreamed, and woke to find Branna keeping watch. Off to bed now, it's late.
We won't leave you. I can help you to bed.
I'll sit here by the fire.
Then I'll sit with you. We're taking turns. I'll wake Eamon when it's his, and Tegan will bring you morning tea.
Too weary to argue, too proud to scold, Sorka only smiled. Is that the way of it?
Until you're all well again.
I'm better, I promise you. His magic was so strong, so black, it took all I had in me and more to stop it. Our Tegan, you'd be proud. So fierce and bright she was, and you running toward us with your grandad's sword.
It's very heavy.
The laugh felt good. He was a big man, with a red beard as long as your arm. On a sigh, she ran her hand over Branna's head. If you won't go to your bed, make a pallet there on the floor. We'll both sleep a while. When her child slept, Sorka added a charm to make Branna's dreams good and sweet, and she turned to the fire. It was time long past to call Dahi home. She needed his sword, she needed his strength, she needed him. So she opened her mind to the fire, opened her heart to her love. Her spirit travelled over the hills and fields, through the night, through woods, over water where the moon swam. She flew across all the miles that separated them to the camp of their clan. He slept near the fire with the moonlight like a blanket over him. When she settled down beside him, his lips curved and his arm curled around her. You smell of home fires and wooded glades. It's home you must come. Soon, Ira. 2 weeks, no more. Tomorrow you must ride with all haste, my heart, my warrior. She cupped his face. We have need of you.
And I of you. He rolled over onto the vision of her, lowered his mouth to hers.
Not for the bed, though, oh, I ache for you, every day, every night. I need your sword, I need you by my side. Cavan attacked today.
Dahi sprang up, his hand on the hilt of his sword.
Are you hurt? The children? No, but nearly. He grows stronger and I weaker. I fear I can't hold him.
There is none stronger than you. He will never touch the Dark Witch.
Her heart broke at his faith in her, for she could no longer earn it. I'm not well.
What is this?
I didn't wish to burden you, and no, my pride. I valued it too much, but now I cast it away. I fear what comes, Dahi. I fear him. I cannot hold him without you. For our children, for our lives, come home. I will ride tonight. I will bring men with me and ride for home. At first light, wait for the dark is his, and be swift. 2 days. I will be home with you in 2 days, and Cavan will know the bite of my sword, I swear it. I will watch for you and wait for you. I am yours in this life and all that come.
Heal, my witch. He brought her hands to his lips. It's all I will ever ask of you.
Come home and I will heal.
2 days.
2 days.
She kissed him, holding tight and close, and carried the kiss with her as she flew back over the mirror of the moon and the green hills. She came back into her body, tired, so tired, but stronger as well. The magic between them flowed rich, flowed true.
2 days,
she thought, and closed her eyes. While he rode to her, she would rest. She would let the magic build again, keep the children close, draw in the light. She slept again. She dreamed again. And saw, in her dream, he didn't wait for the light. He mounted in the moonlight under the cold stars. His face was fierce as his horse danced over the hard ground. His horse lunged forward, far outpacing the mounts of the 3 men who rode with him. Using the moonlight and the stars, Dahi rode for home, for his family, for his woman, for the Dark Witch he loved more than his life. When the wolf leaped out of the dark, he barely had time to clear his sword from its sheath. Dahi struck out, but cut through only air as the horse reared. Fog rose like grey walls, trapping him, blocking his men. He fought, but the wolf sprang over the blade, time after time, snapping out with its jaws, swiping viciously with claws, only to vanish into the fog, only to charge out from it again. She flew to reach him, soaring over those hills again, across the water. She knew when those jaws tore, knew when the blood spilled from his heart, from hers. Her tears fell like rain, washing away the fog. Crying his name, she dropped to the ground beside him. She tried her strongest spell, her most powerful charm, but his heart would not beat again. As she clasped Dahi's hand in hers, cried to the goddess for mercy, she heard the wolf laugh in the dark. Rana shivered in sleep. Dreams stalked her, full of blood and snarls and death. She struggled to outpace them, to break free. She wanted her mother, wanted her father, wanted the sun and warmth of spring, but clouds and cold covered her. The wolf stepped out of the fog and into her path, and its fangs dripped red and wet. On a muffled cry, she shoved up on her pallet and clutched her amulet. Curling her knees up, she hugged them hard, swiped her teary face against her thighs to dry them. She wasn't a babe to weep over bad dreams. It was past time to wake Eamon, and then hope to sleep more calmly in her own cot. She turned her head first to check on her mother, and saw the chair empty. Knuckling her eyes, she called softly for her mother as she started to rise, and she saw Sorka, lying on the floor between the fire and the loft ladder, still as death. "Ma! Ma!
Terror seized her as she sprang over to drop at her mother's side. Hands shaking, she turned Sorka over to cradle her mother's head in her lap, saying her name over and over like a chant, too white, too still, too cold. Rocking, Branna acted without thought or plan. When the heat surged through her, she poured it into her mother. Those shaking hands pressed hard, hard on Sorka's heart as her own head fell back, as her eyes glazed and fixed. The black smoke of them pulled for the light and shot arrows of it into her mother. The heat poured out, the cold poured in, until shuddering she slumped forward. Sky and sea revolved, light and dark swirled. Pain such as she'd never known sliced through her belly, stabbed into her heart, then was gone, leaving only exhaustion. From somewhere far away she heard her hound baying. "No more, no more," Sorka's voice croaked out, harsh and weak. "Stop, Branna, you must stop. You need more. I will find more. No, do as I say. Quiet breaths, quiet mind, quiet heart. Breath, mind, heart."
"What's wrong? What happened?"
Eamon came flying down the ladder.
"Ma! I found her! Help me get her to bed!"
"No, not bed. No time for it," Sorka said. "Eamon, let Cathal in and wake Tegan."
"She's waked? She's here?"
"Ah, there's my babby. Not to fret."
"There's blood. Your hands have blood."
"Aye."
Burying her grief, Sorka stared at her hands.
"'Tisn't mine."
"Fetch a cloth, Tegan, and we'll wash her."
"No, not a cloth. The cauldron. Fetch my candles and book and the salt. All the salt we have. Build up the fire, Eamon, and Branna, make my tea. Make it strong."
"I will."
"Tegan, be a good girl now, and pack up what food we have."
"Are we going on a journey?"
"A journey, aye. Feed the stock, Eamon. Aye, it's early yet, but feed them and well. Pack all the oats you can for Alistair."
She took the cup from Branna, drank deep, drank all.
"Now, go pack your things, your clothes, blankets. You'll take the sword, the dagger, all the coin, the jewels my granny left me, all that she left me, all, Branna. Leave nothing of value. Pack it all and be quick, quick," she snapped, and had Branna dashing away.
Time, the Dark Witch thought. It came, it went, and now she had so little left, but enough. She would make it enough. She sat quiet while her children did her bidding, and built her strength, amassed her power. When Branna came down, Sorka stood straight and tall. Her skin held warmth and colour, her eyes focus and energy.
"You're well."
"No, my darling. Well, I'm not, nor will be again." She held up a hand before Branna could speak. "But strong is what I am, for this time and for this need. I will do what I must, and so will you." She looked to her son, her baby girl. "So will all of you. Before the sun rises, you will go. You will keep to the woods, go south. Do not use the road until you are well away. Find my cousin Ailish, the Clan O'Dwyer, and tell her the tale. She will do what she can."
"We will all go."
"No, Eamon. I will bide here. You must be strong and brave, protect your sisters, and they protect you. I would not survive the journey."
"I will make you well,"
Branna insisted. "'Tis beyond you, 'tis meant. But I do not leave you alone or helpless. What I am, what I have, will live in you. One day you will come back, for this is home, and home is the source. I cannot give you your innocence, but I will give you power. Stand with me, for you are my heart and soul, my blood and bone, you are my all. And now I cast the circle, and no dark shall enter." Flame circled the floor, and at the flick of her hand leapt under the cauldron. Looking down at her hands again, she sighed once, then stepped forward. "This is your father's blood." She opened her hands over the cauldron, and the blood poured. "And these are my tears, and yours. He rode to protect us, rode home as I asked him. A trap set by Cavan, using my fear, my weakness. He took your father's life as he will take mine. The life, but not the spirit. not the power. She knelt, enfolded her weeping children. I would comfort you in every moment I have left, but there is no time for grieving. Remember him who made you, who loved you, and know I go to be with him and watch over you.
Don't send us away,
Tegan sobbed on her mother's shoulder.
I want to stay with you. I want Da.
You'll take the light in me with you. I will always be with you. With hands now clean and white, Sorka brushed tears from her daughter's cheek. You, my bright light, my hope. You, my brave son. She kissed Eamon's fingers, my heart. And you, my steady, searching one. She cupped Branna's face, my strength. Carry me with you. And now we work this spell together. Stand with me. Say as I say. Do as I do. She held out her hands. With blood and tears we spill our fears. She waved a hand over the cauldron, and the liquid within began to stir. A pinch of salt ×4 to close and bolt the door. Weeds to bind, berries to blind. My children he will not see, and they will live safe and free. Pretty petals tinged with hate, scented sweet, and so to bait. Boil it all in fire and smoke, and on this potion Cavan chokes. When I call, he comes to me. As I will, so mote it be. The light flashed, so all in the circle burned with it. She called on Hecate, on Brigid, on Morrigan, on Baucaha, summoning the strength and power of the goddesses. The air quaked, seemed to split and crack. It rang with voices as Sorka stood, arms high in both prayer and demand. The smoke turned red as blood, fogged the room, then, as if in a whirlpool, sucked back into the cauldron. Eyes bright, Sorka poured the potion into a vessel, sealed it, slid it in her pocket. "Mother," Branna breathed. "I am and will be. Don't fear me, or what I give you now. My babby." She took Tegan's hands. "It will grow in you as you grow. You will ever be kind, ever ask why. You will ever stand for those who cannot stand. Take this."
It's hot,
Tegan said as her hands glowed in her mother's. "It will cool again until you need it. My son, you will fly and you will fight. You will ever be loyal and true. Take this. I would take you. I would guard you. Guard your sisters. Branna, my first, so much to ask of you. Your gift is strong already, and now I give you more than Tegan and Eamon, as I must. You will build and you will make. When you love, you will never stop. You will ever be the one they look to first, and will ever bear the burden. Forgive me, and take this." Branna gasped.
It burns.
Only for a moment. And in that moment, Sorka grieved 1,000 years. Open. Take. Live. She kept only enough, just enough, then let herself slide to the floor when it was done. She was the Dark Witch no more. You are the Dark Witch, 1 by 3. This is my gift and my curse. Each of you is strong and stronger together. One day you'll return. Go now and quickly. Day comes. Know my heart goes with you." But Tegan clung to her, kicked, cried when Eamon pulled her away. "Take her outside, onto Alistair," Branna said quietly, but first Eamon knelt to his mother. "I will avenge my father, and you, my mother. I will protect my sisters with my life. I swear this. I am proud of my son. I will see you again. My babby," she said to Tegan, "you will return. I promise you." Branna turned to her sister, passed a hand over her head, and Tegan nodded to sleep. "Take her, Eamon, and the packs you can carry. I'll bring the rest. I'll help you. I'm strong enough," Sorka insisted, and she didn't intend to allow Cavan into her house. As they loaded the horse, Branna looked into her mother's eyes.
I understand.
I know.
I'll let no harm come to them. If you cannot destroy Cavan, your blood will. If it takes 1,000 years, your blood will. Night's fleeting. Go quickly. Alistair will carry the 3 of you far enough into day.
Sorka's lips trembled before she found the will to firm them.
She is tender of heart, our baby. I will always care for her. I promise you.
Then that's enough. Go, or all is for naught.
Branna pulled herself up behind her brother and her spell-struck sister.
If I am your strength, mother, you are mine. All that come from us will know of Sorka. All will honour the Dark Witch.
Through the blur of tears, she looked ahead and kicked the horse into a gallop. Sorka watched them, kept them in her mind's eye as they rode through the dark of the woods away from her toward life. And as day broke, she took the potion from her pocket, drank, waited for the Dark One to come. He brought the fog, but came as a man, drawn to her scent, to the shimmer of her skin, to her power, false now, but potent.
My man is dead, she said flatly. Your man stands before you. But you are not a man like other men. More than others. You called me Sorka the Dark.
I am not a woman like other women, but more. Needs must be met. Power calls to power. Will you make me a goddess, Cavan? Greed and lust darkened his eyes, and, Sorka thought, blinded him.
I will show you more than you can imagine. Together we will have all, be all. You have only to join with me.
What of my children?
What of them?
His gaze shifted to the house. Where are they? He demanded, and would have pushed by her. They sleep. I am their mother, and I would have your word on their safety. You cannot enter until it's given. I cannot join with you until you swear your oath.
They will come to no harm from me. He smiled again. So I swear to you.
Liar, she thought. I can still see your mind and the dark pit of your heart. Then come and kiss me. Make me yours as I make you mine. He pulled her hard against him, twisted her hair cruelly in his hand to drag her head back, and crushed his lips to hers. She opened those lips, and with death in her heart allowed his tongue to sweep into her mouth, allowed the poison to do its work. He stumbled back, clutching at his throat. What have you done? I have beaten you, I have destroyed you, and with my last breaths I curse you. On this day and in this hour I call upon what holds of my power. You will burn and die in pain, and know the Dark Witch has you slain. So my blood curses your blood for all eternity. As I will, so mote it be. He threw his power at her, even as his skin began to smoke, to blacken. She fell in blood, in agony, but clung to life, clung only to watch his death. All that come from you be damned, she managed as flames burst from him, as his screams tore the world. My death for his, she whispered when the black ashes of the sorcerer smouldered on the ground. It is right, it is just. It is done. She let go, released her spirit, and left her body by the cabin in the deep green woods. And as the fog swirled, something shifted in the black ashes. 3. County Mayo, 2013. The cold carved bone deep, fueled by the lash of the wind, iced by the drowning rain gushing from a bruised, bloated sky. Such was Iona Sheehan's welcome to Ireland. She loved it. How could she not, she asked herself as she hugged her arms to her chest and drank in the wild, soggy view from her window. She was standing in a castle. She'd sleep in a castle that night, an honest-to-God Irish castle in the heart of the West. Some of her ancestors had worked there, probably slept there. Everything she knew verified that her people, on her mother's side in any case, had sprung from this gorgeous part of the world, this magical part of this magical country. She'd gambled, well, pretty much everything to come here, to find her roots, to, she hoped, connect with them, and most of all, to finally understand them. Burnt bridges, left them smouldering behind her in the hopes of building new ones, stronger ones, ones that led somewhere she wanted to go. She'd left her mother mildly annoyed, but then her mother never rose to serious anger, or sorrow, or joy, or passion. How difficult had it been to find herself saddled with a daughter who rode emotions like a wild stallion. Her father had just patted her head in his absent way and wished her luck as casually as he might some passing acquaintance. She'd suspected she'd never been any more than that to him. Her paternal grandparents considered the trip a grand adventure and had given her the very welcome gift of a cheque. She was grateful, even knowing they belonged to the out-of-sight, out-of-mind school and probably wouldn't give her another thought. But her maternal grandmother, her treasured Nan, had given her a gift with so many questions. She was here in this lovely corner of Mayo, ringed by water, shadowed by ancient trees, to find the answers. She should wait until tomorrow, settle in, take a nap, as she'd barely slept on the flight from Baltimore. At least she should unpack. She had a week in Ashford Castle, a foolish expense on the practical scale, but she wanted, so wanted, that connection, that once-in-a-lifetime treat. She opened her bags, began to take out clothes. She was a woman who'd once wished she'd grow taller than her scant 5'3", and curvier than the slim teenage boy body the fates had granted her. Then she'd stopped wishing and compensated by using bright colors in her wardrobe and wearing high heels whenever she could manage it. Illusion, Nan would say, was as good as reality. She'd once wished she could be beautiful like her mother, but worked with what she had. Cute. The only time she'd seen her mother close to genuinely horrified had been just the week before, when Iona had chopped off her long blonde hair to a pixie cap. Far from used to it herself, she raked her fingers through it. It suited her, didn't it? Didn't it bring out her cheekbones a little? It didn't matter if she regretted the impulse. She'd regretted others. Trying new things, taking new risks, those were her current goals. No more wait and see, the mantra of her parents as long as she could remember. Now was now. And with that in mind, she thought, the hell with unpacking, the hell with waiting until tomorrow. What if she died in her sleep? She dug out boots, a scarf, the new raincoat, candy pink, she'd bought for Ireland. She dragged a pink and white striped cap over her hair, slung her oversized purse on crossbody. Don't think, just do, she told herself, and left her warm, pretty room. She made a wrong turn almost immediately, but it only gave her time to wander the corridors. She'd asked for a room in the oldest section when she'd booked, and liked to imagine servants scurrying with fresh rushes, or ladies sitting at their spindles, or warriors in bloody mail returning from battle. She had days to explore the castle, the grounds, the nearby village of Kong, and she meant to make use of all of it. But her primary goal remained to seek out and make contact with the Dark Witch. When she stepped outside into the whistling wind and drenching rain, she told herself it was a perfect day for witches. The little map Nan had drawn was in her bag, but she'd etched it on her memory. She turned away from the great stone walls, took the path toward the deep woods, past winter-quiet gardens, spreads of soaked green. Belatedly, she remembered the umbrella in her bag, dragged it out, pushing her way forward into the evocative gloom of the rain-struck woods. She hadn't imagined the trees so big, with their wide trunks, crazily gnarled branches. A storybook wood, she thought, thrilled with it even as the rain splashed over her boots. Through its drumming, she heard the wind sigh and moan, then the rumble of what must be the river. Paths speared, forked, but she kept the map in her head. She thought she heard something cry overhead, and for a moment imagined she saw the sweep of wings. Then, despite the drumming, the rumbling, the sighs and the moans, everything suddenly seemed still. As the path narrowed, roughened, her heartbeat pounded in her ears, too quick, too loud. To the right, an upended tree exposed a base taller than a man, wider than her arm-span, vines thick as her wrist, tangled together like a wall. She found herself drawn toward them, struck by the urge to pull at them, to fight her way through them to see what lay beyond. The concept of getting lost flitted through her mind, then out again. She just wanted to see. She took a step forward, then another. She smelled smoke and horses, and both pulled her closer to that tangled wall. Even as she reached out, something burst through. The massive black blur had her stumbling back. She thought instinctively, "Bear!" Since the umbrella had flown out of her hand, she looked around frantically for a weapon, a stick, a rock, then saw as it eyed her the biggest dog ever to stand on 4 massive paws. Not a bear, she thought, but as potentially deadly if he wasn't somebody's cheerful pet. "Hello, doggy?" He continued to watch her out of eyes more gold than brown. He stepped forward to sniff her, which she hoped wasn't the prelude to taking a good, hard bite. Then he let out 2 cannon-shot barks before loping away. Okay. She bent over from the waist until she caught her breath. All right. Exploring would definitely wait for a bright, sunny day, or at least a brighter, drier one. She picked up her soaked and muddy umbrella and pressed on. She should have waited on the whole thing, she told herself. Now she was wet and flustered and, she realized, more travel-weary than she'd expected. She should be napping in her warm hotel bed, snuggled in, listening to the rain instead of trudging through it. And now, perfect. Fog rolled in, surfing over the ground like waves on the shore. Mists thickened like those vines, and the rain sounded like voices muttering. Or there were voices muttering, she thought, in a language she shouldn't understand, but almost did. She quickened her pace, as anxious to get out of the woods as she'd been to get into them. The cold turned brutal until she saw her breath hazing out. Now the voices sounded in her head. "Turn back. Turn back." It was stubbornness as much as anxiety that had her pushing ahead until she nearly ran along the slippery path and, like the dog, burst into the clear. The rain was just the rain, the wind just the wind. The path opened into a road with a few houses, smoke puffing out the chimneys, and beyond, the beauty of the mist-shrouded hills. Too much imagination, not enough sleep, she told herself. She saw dooryard gardens resting their bright blooms for spring, cars parked on the roadside or in short drives. Not far now, according to Nan's map, so she walked along the road, counting houses. It sat farther off the road than the others, farther apart, as if it needed breathing room. The pretty thatched-roofed cottage, with its deep blue walls and bright red door, transmitted that same storybook vibe, yet a shiny silver Mini sat in the little driveway. The cottage itself jogged into an L, fronted by curved glass. Even in the winter, pots of bright pansies sat on the stoops, their exotic faces turned upward to drink in the rain. A sign of aged wood hung above the curve of glass. Its deeply carved letters read, "The Dark Witch." I found her! For a moment, Iona just stood in the rain, closed her eyes. Every decision she'd made in the last 6 weeks, perhaps every one she'd made in her life, had led to this. She wasn't sure whether to go to the L, the workshop, Nan had told her, or the cottage entrance, but as she walked closer, she saw the gleam of light on the glass, and closer still, the shelves holding bottles full of colour, bright or soft, hanks of hanging herbs, mortars and pestles, bowls and cauldrons. Steam puffed from one on a stovetop, and a woman stood at a work counter grinding something. Iona's first thought was how unfair it seemed that some women could look like that even without fussing. The dark hair bundled up, sexily messy, the rosy flush from the work and the steam, the fine bones that said beauty from birth to death, and the deeply sculpted mouth just slightly curved in a contented smile. Was it genes or magic, she wondered, but then, for some, one was the same as the other. She gathered her courage, and, setting her umbrella aside, reached for the door handle. She barely touched it when the woman looked up, over. The smile deepened, polite welcome, so Iona opened the door, stepped in, and the smile faded. Eyes of smoke grey held so intensely on her face that Iona stopped where she was, just over the threshold. "Can I come in?" "It's in you are." I guess I am. I should have knocked. I'm sorry, God, it smells amazing in here. Rosemary and basil and lavender and everything. "I'm sorry," she said again. "Are you Branna O'Dwyer?" "I am, yes." As she answered, she took a towel from under the counter, crossed to Iona. "You're soaked through." "Oh, sorry, I'm tripping on the floor. I walked over from the castle, from the hotel. I'm staying at Ashford Castle." "Lucky you. It's a grand place." "It's like a dream, at least what I've seen of it. I just got here, a couple of hours ago, and I wanted to come to see you right away. I came to meet you." "Why?" "Oh, I'm sorry. You're sorry for a lot, it seems, in such a short time." "Ha!" Iona twisted the towel in her hands. "Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm Iona Sheehan. We're cousins. My grandmother, Mary Kate O'Connor, is cousins with your grandmother, Ailish Flannery. So that makes us... I get confused if it's fourth or third or whatever." "A cousin's a cousin for all that." "Well then, take off those muddy boots and we'll have some tea." "Thanks. I know I should have written or called or something, but I was afraid you'd tell me not to come." "Were you?" Branna murmured as she set the kettle on. "It's just once I'd decided to come, I needed to push through with it." She left her muddy boots by the door, hung her coat on the peg. "I always wanted to visit Ireland, that roots thing, but it was always eventually. Then, well, it was now, right now." "Go have a seat at the table back there by the fire. It's a cold wind today." "God, tell me. I swear it got colder the deeper I went into the woods, then... Oh, Jesus, it's the bear!" She stopped as the massive dog lifted his head from his place at the little hearth and gave her the same steady stare he had in the woods. The dog. I thought he was a bear for a minute when he came bursting through the woods. But he's a really big dog. He's your dog." "He's mine, yes, and I'm his. He's Cahal, and he won't harm you. Have you a fear of dogs, cousin?" "No, but he's huge. What is he?" "Breeding, you mean? His father is an Irish wolfhound, and his mother a mix of Irish Dane and Scottish deerhound. He looks fierce and dignified at the same time. Can I pet him?" "That would be up to you and him," Branna said as she brought tea and sugar biscuits to the table. She said nothing more as Iona crouched, held out the back of her hand for the dog to sniff, then stroked it gently over his head. "Hello, Cahal. I didn't have time to introduce myself before. You scared the crap out of me." She rose, smiled at Branna. "I'm so happy to meet you, to be here. Everything's been so crazy, and it's all running around in my head. I can hardly believe I'm standing here." "Sit then and have your tea." "I barely knew about you," Iona began as she sat, warmed her chilled hands on the cup. Nan had told me about the cousins, you and your brother." "Connor." "Yes, Connor, and the others who live in Galway or Clare. She wanted to bring me over years ago, but it didn't work out. My parents, well, mostly my mother, didn't really want it, and she and my father split up, and then... Well, you're just bouncing around between them. Then they both remarried, and that was weird because my mother insisted on an annulment. They say how that doesn't really make you a bastard, but it sure feels like it." Branna lifted her eyebrows. "I imagine it does, yes." "Then there was school and work, and I was involved with someone for a while. One day I looked at him and thought, why? We didn't have anything for each other but habit and convenience, and people need more, don't they?" "I'd say they do." "I want more, sometime anyway. Mostly, I never felt like I fit. Where I was, something always felt a little skewed, not quite right. Then I started having the dreams, or I started remembering them, and I went to visit Nan. Everything she told me sounded crazy. It shouldn't have made sense, but it did. It made everything make sense. I'm babbling. I'm so nervous. She picked up a cookie, stuffed it in her mouth. These are good. Don't be saying you're sorry again. It's coming on pitiful. Tell me about the dreams. He wants to kill me. Who? I don't know, or I didn't. Nan says his name is Kavan, and he's a sorcerer, evil. Centuries ago, our ancestor, the first Dark Witch, destroyed him, except some part of him survived it. He still wants to kill me. Us. I know that sounds insane. Placidly, Branna sipped her tea. Do I look shocked by all this? No. You look really calm. I wish I could be really calm. And you're beautiful. I always wanted to be beautiful, too. And taller. You're taller. Babbling. Can't stop it. Rising, Branna opened a cupboard, took out a bottle of whiskey. It's a good day for a little whiskey in your tea. So, you heard this story about Kavan and Sorka, the first Dark Witch, and decided to come to Ireland to meet me. Basically, I quit my job. I sold my stuff. For the first time, Branna looked genuinely surprised. You sold your things, including 28 pairs of designer shoes. Bought at discount, but still, that stung some. But I wanted the break clean, and I needed the money to come here, to stay here. I have a work visa. I'll get a job, find a place to live. She picked up another cookie, hoping it would stop the flood of words, but they just kept pouring out. I know it's crazy spending so much to stay at Ashford, but I just wanted it. I've got nothing back there but Nan, not really, and she'll come if I ask her. I feel like I might fit here, like things might balance here. I'm tired of not knowing why I don't belong. What was your work? I was a riding instructor, trail guide, stable hand. I'd hoped to be a jockey once, but I loved them too much and didn't have the passion for racing and training. Watching her, Branna only nodded. It's horses, of course. Yeah, I'm good with them. I've no doubt of that. I know one of the owners of the stables here. The hotel uses them for guests. They do trail rides and riding lessons and the like. I think Boyle might find a place for you. You're kidding. I never figured to get stable work right off. I figured waitress, shop clerk. It would be fabulous if I could work there. Some would say too good to be true, but Iona had never believed that. Good should be true. Look, I'll muck out stalls, groom, whatever he needs or wants. I'll have a word with him. I can't thank you enough, Iona said, reaching for Branna's hand. As they touched, gripped, heat and light flashed. Though Iona's hand trembled, she didn't pull away, didn't look away. What does it mean? It means it may be time at last. Did Cousin Mary Kate give you a gift? Yes, when I went to see her, when she told me. With her free hand, Iona reached for the chain under her sweater, took out the copper amulet with the sign of the horse. It was made by Sorka for her youngest child, her daughter, Tegan, Iona supplied, to shield her from Kavan. For Branna, it was the hound. I should have realized that when I saw the dog. And for Eamon, the hawk. She told me the stories as long as I can remember, but I thought they were stories. My mother insisted they were, and she didn't like Nan telling them to me. So I stopped telling her, my mother, about them. My mother prefers to just sort of glide along. That's why it is the amulet wasn't passed to her, but to you. She wasn't the one. You are. Cousin Mary Kate would come, but we knew she wasn't the one. But like a guardian for the amulet, for the legacy, it was passed to her by others who guarded and waited. Now it comes to you. And you, Branna thought, have come to me. Did she tell you what you are? Branna asked. She said... Iona let out a long breath. She said, I'm the Dark Witch. But you, there are 3. 3 is good magic. So, now we're 3. You and I and Connor. But each must accept the whole and themselves and the legacy. do you?" Hoping for calm, Iona took a gulp of whiskey-laced tea. "I'm working on it." "What can you do? She wouldn't have passed this to you unless she was sure. Show me what you can do." "What?" Iona wiped suddenly damp palms on her jeans. "Like an audition?" "I've practiced all my life. You haven't. But you are the blood." Branna tilted her head, her beautiful face skeptical. "Have you no skills as yet?" "I've got some skills. It's just I've never... except with Nan." Annoyed, uneasy, Iona drew the candle on the table closer. "Now I'm nervous," she muttered. "I feel like I'm trying out for the school play. I bombed that one." "Clear your mind. Let it come." She breathed again, slow and steady, put her focus, her energy on the candle wick, felt the warmth rise in her and light seep through, and she blew gently. The flame flickered, swayed, then burned true. "It's so cool," Iona whispered. "I'll never get used to it. I'm just... magic." "It's power. It must be trained, disciplined and respected, and honored." "You sound like Nan. She showed me when I was little, and I believed. Then I thought they were just magic tricks because my parents said they were, and I think... I know... my mother told her to stop or she wouldn't let her see me." "Your mother's mind is closed. She's like a lot of others. You shouldn't be angry with her." "She kept me from this, from what I am." "Now you know. Can you do more?" "A few things. I can levitate things, not big things, and it's 50-50. Horses. I understand what they're feeling. I always have. I tried a glamour, but that was a terrible bust. My eyes went purple, even the whites, and my teeth glowed like neon. I had to call in sick for 2 days before it wore off." Amused, Branna added more tea and whiskey to the cups. "What can you do?" Iona demanded. "I showed mine, you show yours." "Fair enough, then." Branna flicked out a hand and held a ball of white fire in her palm. "Holy shit, that's..." Warily, Iona reached out, brought her fingertips close enough to feel the heat. "I want to do that." "Then you'll practice, and you'll learn." "You'll teach me?" "I'll guide you. It's already in you, but needs the root, the signs, the finesse. I'll give you some books to read and study. Take your week at the castle and think about what you want, Iona Sheehan. Think carefully, for once it begins, you can't go back." "I don't want to go back." "I don't mean to America or your life there. I mean from the path we'll walk." She flicked her hand again, and with it empty, picked up her tea. "Cavan, what is left of him may be worse than what was, and what is left wants what you have, what we have, and he wants our blood, your power and your life. You'll risk both, so think carefully, for it's not a game we'd be playing." "Nan said it had to be a choice, my choice. She told me he, Cavan, would want what I have, what I am, and do whatever he could to get it. She cried when I said I was going to come, but she was proud, too. As soon as I got here, I knew it was the right choice. I don't want to ignore what I am, I just want to understand it. Staying is still a choice, and if you decide to stay, you'll stay here, with me and Connor." "Here?" "It's best we stay together. There's room enough." Nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing in her life measured as amazing a gift. "You'd let me live here with you?" "We're cousins, after all. Take your week. Connor and I have committed, have taken an oath if the third came, we'd accept. But you haven't had a lifetime, so think it through and be sure. The decision has to be yours." Whatever it was, Branna thought, would change all. 4. The rain soaked her again on her trek back, but it didn't dampen her mood. After warming her bones in the shower, Iona dug out flannel pants, a thermal t-shirt, then, dumping her suitcase on the floor, she'd unpack properly later, she crawled into bed and slept like the dead for 4 solid hours. She woke in the dark, completely disoriented and starving. Though her thoroughly disorganized possessions taunted her, she rooted through for jeans, a sweater, warm socks, boots. Armed with her guidebook and one of the books Branna had lent her, she took herself off to the hotel's cottage restaurant for the food, the company. A fire snapped in the hearth while she dug into a bowl of roasted vegetable soup and pored over her books. She liked the comfort of the mix of voices around her, Irish, American, German, and she thought possibly Swedish. She dined on fish and chips, and since it was her first night, treated herself to a glass of champagne. The waitress had a smile as brilliant as her bright red hair, and gifted Iona with it as she refilled the water glass.
"Are you enjoying your meal, then?"
"It's wonderful." Drawing her shoulders up and in a self-hug, Iona beamed a smile back. "Everything's just wonderful."
"Would it be your first time at Ashford?"
"Yes, it's amazing. It still feels like a dream."
"Well, they say we should have better weather tomorrow if you're after rambling about."
"I'd like to." Should she rent a car, Iona wondered? Try her luck on the roads? Maybe just a walk to the village for now.
"Actually, I took a walk through the grounds, the woods, this afternoon. In all that drench."
I couldn't resist. I wanted to see my cousin. She lives nearby.
"Is that the truth? Sure, it's nice to have family while you're visiting. Who is she, if you don't mind me asking?"
"They, really, though I only met Branna today. Branna O'Dwyer." The girl's smile didn't dim, but her eyes showed new focus.
"A cousin to the O'Dwyers, are you now?"
"Yes. Do you know them?"
"Everyone knows Branna and Connor O'Dwyer. He's a falconer. The hotel will book hawk walks through the falconry school, and that Connor manages. It's a very popular activity with the guests here. And Branna, she has a shop in Cong. She makes soaps and lotions and tonics and the like. The Dark Witch, it's called, after a local legend.
I saw her workshop today. I'll have to check out the shop and the falconry school.
Both are pleasant walks right from the hotel. Well then, enjoy your meal."
The waitress left her to it, but Iona noticed she stopped by another server for a quick word, and both of them glanced back to Iona's table. So, she thought, the O'Dwyers were local interests. Hardly surprising. But it was weird sitting there eating her fish and chips, knowing she'd become an object of speculation. Did they all know Branna wasn't merely the owner of the Dark Witch, but was one? And so am I, Iona thought. Now I have to learn just what that means. Determined to do just that, she opened another book and read her way through the rest of the meal. The rain eased, but the night wind blew fierce, urging her to hurry back to the main hotel rather than strolling along the River Cong as she'd hoped. She got good evenings and welcome backs from the staff as she stepped in, crossed through the lobby. Curious, she took brochures on the falconry school and the stables. Then, what the hell, she was sort of on vacation, asked for tea to be sent to her room. Once inside, she made herself set the brochures and books aside to deal, finally, with the unpacking. After the brutal purge of her wardrobe, the selling of whatever she'd put aside, she still had more than enough, and she'd brought all she thought she'd need for her new life. By the time she'd filled the wardrobe, the drawers, repacked items she decided could wait, the tea arrived, along with a plate of pretty cookies. Satisfied she'd done her chores, she changed back into her sleep pants, piled up the pillows, and, sitting in bed, composed the email on her notebook to let her grandmother know she'd arrived safe, had met with Branna. "Ireland's all you said and more, even just the little I've seen. So is Branna. It's so generous of her to let me stay with her. The castle's just awesome, and I'm going to enjoy every minute I'm here, but I'm already looking forward to moving in with Branna and Connor. I hope I meet him soon. If I get the job at the stables, it'll just be perfect, so think good thoughts. Nan, I'm sitting in this wonderful bed in a castle in Ireland, drinking tea and thinking of all that's yet to come. I know you said it could be a hard road, hard choices, and Branna sure as hell made that clear. But I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I think maybe I've finally found where I fit." Tomorrow I'll check out the stables, the falconry school, the village, and Branna's shop. I'll let you know how it all goes. I love you. Iona. She sent dutiful emails to her mother, her father, a few cheerful ones to friends and co-workers, and reminded herself to take some pictures to send next time. She set the notebook aside to charge, retrieved the books, the brochures. This time she got into the bed, wiggled her shoulders back against the pillows. Blissfully happy, she scanned the brochures, studied the photos. The school sounded absolutely fascinating, and the stables perfect. One of her mother's favorite warnings was, don't get your hopes up, but Iona's were high, high up. She slipped the stable brochure under her pillow. She'd sleep on it for luck. Then she opened Branna's book again. Within 20 minutes, with the lights on, the tea tray still on the bed beside her, she dropped back into sleep. And this time dreamed of hawks and horses, of the black hound, of the deep green woods where a stone cabin nestled with fog crawling at its feet. After dismounting a horse as grey as the fog, she walked through the mists, the hood of her cloak drawn up to cover her hair. She carried roses for love to the stone polished smooth and carved deep by magic and grief. There she laid the roses, white as the innocence she'd lost. I am home, Mother. We're home. Dabbing the tears on her cheeks with her fingers, she traced the name, Sorka, the dark witch, and the words bled against the stone. I am waiting for you. Not her mother's voice, but his. With all that had been done, all that had been sacrificed, he survived. She had known it. They had all known it. And hadn't she come here alone for this as much as to visit her mother's grave? You will wait longer yet. You will wait a day, a moon, 1,000 years, but you will never have what you covet. You come alone in the starlight. You look for love. I would give it to you. I am not alone. She spun around, her hood fell back, and her bright hair caught the light. I am never alone. The fog swirled, spun up, spun out, coalesced into the form of a man, or what had been a man. She'd faced him before as a child, but she had more than rocks now. A shadow he was, she thought, a shadow to haunt dreams and smother light. Such a pretty thing. A woman now, ripe for plucking. Do you still throw stones? Even as she stared into his eyes, she watched the red stone he wore around his neck gleam. My aim is as true as it was ever. He laughed, weaved closer. She caught his scent, the hint of sulphur. Only a devil's bargain could have given him the power to exist. Your mother is gone. No skirts to hide behind now. I defeated her, took her life, rent her power with my hands. You lie. Do you think we cannot see? Do you think we do not know? His amulet pulsed red. His heart, she thought, his centre, his power. She meant to take it at any cost. With a kiss she burned you, and I marked you. You bear it still. She held up her hands, fingers curled toward him so the mark on his shoulder burned like a flame. On his scream, she leapt forward, snatching at the stone he wore, but he lashed out, fingers going to claws, and scored their grooves in the back of her hand. Damned to you and all your blood. I will crush you in my fists, wring what you are out into a silver cup and drink. My blood will send you to hell. She struck out with her bleeding hand, driving her power through it. But the fog collapsed, so she struck only air. The red stone pulsed, then vanished. My blood will send you to hell, she repeated. And in the dream he seemed to stare at Iona, into her eyes, into her spirit. It is not for me in this time, in this place, but for you in yours. Remember. And cradling her wounded hand, called to her horse. She mounted. She turned once to look at the stone, the flowers, the home she'd once known. On my oath, on my love, we will not fail though it takes 1,000 lifetimes. She laid her hand on her belly, on the gentle bulge. There is already another coming. She rode away through the woods toward the castle where she and her family were housed. Iona woke trembling, her right hand throbbing with pain. She groped for the light with her left. In its flash, she saw the raw gashes, the run of blood. On a shocked cry, she scrambled up, dashed toward the bath, snatching a towel as she lurched toward the sink. Before she could wrap the wound, it began to change. She watched in fascinated horror as the gashes in her skin closed, the blood dried, then faded like the pain. Within seconds, she examined her unmarked hand. A dream, but not, she thought, a vision? One where she'd been an observer and somehow a participant. She'd felt the pain and the rage, the grief. She'd felt the power, more than she'd ever experienced, more than she'd ever known. Tegan's power? Lifting her gaze, Iona studied herself in the mirror, called back the images from the dream. But it had been her face, hadn't it? Her build, her coloring? But not, she thought now, her voice, not even her language, though she'd understood every word. Old Gaelic, she assumed. She needed to know more, to learn more, to find a way to understand how events that had happened hundreds of years before could draw her in so absolutely that she actually felt genuine pain. Leaning over the sink, she splashed cold water on her face, caught the time on her watch. Still shy of 4 a.m., but she was done with sleep. Her body clock would adjust eventually, and for now, she might as well just go with it. Maybe she'd read until sunrise. She walked back into the bedroom, started to lift the tea tray she'd ended up sleeping with, and she saw on the lovely white sheets 3 drops of red, of blood. Hers, she realized. The dream, vision, experience hadn't just given her pain, she'd bled in it. What kind of power could drag her into her own dreams and cause her to bleed from an ancestor's wound? Leaving the tray where it was, she sat on the side of the bed, brushed her fingers over her throat. What if those claws had struck there, slashed her jugular? Would she have died? Could dreams kill? No, she didn't want books, she decided. She wanted answers, and she knew who had them. By 6, fueled with coffee, she headed out once again past the fountains and flowers and green lawns to the thick woods. This time the light held soft and luminous, to drip palely through branches as the wide path narrowed, and this time she saw the signposts for the falconry school, the stables. Later that morning she promised herself she'd visit both, then top it off with a hike to Kong. But she wouldn't be put off with a stack of books and a bit of tabletop magic. The dream stayed with her so closely she caught herself checking her hand for claw marks. A long, high note had her head snapping up, her gaze shooting skyward. The hawk soared across the pale blue, a gorgeous golden-brown sweep that circled, then swooped. She swore she heard the wind of its wings as it danced through the trees and landed on a branch overhead. "Oh, my God, look at you! You're just gorgeous!" He stared down at her, golden eyes steady, unblinking, his wings regally folded. She wondered fancifully if he'd left his crown at home. Slowly, she dug into her back pocket for her phone, holding her breath as she hit camera mode. "I hope you don't mind. It's not every day a woman meets a hawk. Or a falcon. I'm not sure which you are. Just let me—" She framed him in, took the shot, then a second. "Are you hunting? Or just out for your version of a morning stroll? I guess you're from the school, but—" She stopped when the hawk turned its head. She thought she caught it, too, a faint whistle. In response, the hawk lifted off the branch, swooped and dodged its way through the trees, and was gone. "I'm definitely booking a falcon walk," she decided, and checked her photos before she stuffed the phone away to hike on. She reached the upended tree, the wall of vines. Though the pull returned, she pushed it back. Not now, not today, when the emotion of the dream swam so close to the surface. Answers first. The dog waited at the edge of the woods as if he'd been expecting her. He swished his tail by way of greeting, accepted the stroke on his head. "Good morning. It's nice to know I'm not the only one out and about early. I hope Branna's not pissed when I come knocking, but I really need to talk to her. Cahill led the way to the pretty blue cottage, straight to the bright red door. Here goes. She used the knocker shaped like a trinity knot, considered how best to approach her cousin. But the one she hadn't yet met answered the door. He looked like some rumpled, sleepy warrior prince, with his mass of waving hair, a burnished brown that spilled around a face as elegantly boned as his sister's, eyes green as the hills blinked at her. He stood tall and lean, in grey flannel pants and a white pullover unravelling at the hem. "I'm sorry," she began, and thought those words appeared to be her default when she came to this house. "Good morning to you. You must be Cousin Iona from the States." "Yes, welcome home." She found herself enfolded in a big, hard hug that lifted her up to the toes of her boots. The cheerful gesture made her eyes sting and her nerves vanish. "I'd be Connor, if you're wondering. Did Cahill find you and bring you round?" "No, that is, yes. I was already coming here, but he found me." "Well then, coming out of the cold. Winter's still got its teeth in us." "Thanks. I know it's early." "That it is. The day will insist on starting that way." In a gesture she found both casual and miraculous, he flicked a hand at the living-room hearth. Flames leaped up to curl around the stacked peat. "We'll have some breakfast," he continued, "and you can tell me everything there is to know about Iona Sheehan." "That won't take long." "Oh, I wager there's plenty to tell." He grabbed her hand and pulled her through the house. She had a quick impression of colour and jumble and light, the scents of vanilla and smoke, and space, more of it than she'd expected. Then they were in the kitchen, with a pretty stone hearth, long counters the colour of slate, walls of lake blue. Pots of herbs thrived on wide windowsills, copper pots hung over a centre island. Cabinets of dark grey showed colourful glassware, dishes, behind their glass fronts. In a jut ringed with windows stood a beautiful old table and charmingly mismatched chairs. The combination of farmhouse casual and the modern efficiency of glossy white appliances worked like magic. "This is really beautiful, like something out of a really smart magazine." "Is it? Well, it's Branna who has very definite ideas, and this is one of them." Tilting his head in study, he gave her another quick, charming smile. "Can you cook?" Sort of. I mean, I can, I just suck at it." "Well, now, that's a real pity. I'm on duty then. Will it be coffee or tea for you?" "Oh, coffee, thanks. You don't have to cook." "I do if I want to eat, and I do." "In general, around here, Branna's the cook and I'm the bottle washer, but I can manage breakfast well enough." He punched controls on a very intimidating-looking coffee maker as he spoke, pulled a basket of eggs, a hunk of butter, a pack of bacon from the fridge. "Take off your coat and be at home," he told her. "Branna says you're living the life at Ashford for a few days before you're coming here. How are you finding Ashford?" "Like a dream. I slept too much of the day away yesterday. Obviously, I'm making up for it. You don't mind me moving in?" "Why would I? We'll be taking turns as bottle washers, so that's one for me." He got down a skillet, set it on the stovetop. "Cups up there, and fresh cream if you're wanting it, and sugar as well." He gestured here and there before he tossed bacon into the skillet. All of it and all of him, she thought, seemed as casual and miraculous as his wrist-flick fire-starting. "I hear you're after working at the stables." "I'm hoping." "Branna had a word with Boyle. He'll be talking to you about that today." "Really?" Her heart actually leapt at the prospect. That's great! That's fantastic! A lot of people thought I'd lost my mind just packing up, coming here without a serious plan, without a ready job or a place to stay.
What's an adventure if you know all the steps before you take them?
I know, she grinned at him. Now I've got a job interview and a family to live with. And this morning, certainly it wasn't my plan last night to walk over at 6 a.m., I saw a hawk in the woods. It flew right down, sat on a branch and watched me. I took pictures. She dug out her phone to show him. I guess you'd know what kind of falcon he is? As he lifted the bacon out of the skillet, Connor angled his head to study the image.
A Harris hawk, the same we use for our hawk walks. That's Finn's Merlin, and a fine bird he is. Finbar Burke, he added. He owns the stables with Boyle, and he started the falconry school here at Ashford. He owns quite a bit of this and that, does Finn.
Will I interview with him, too?
Oh, he'd likely leave that to Boyle. Plenty of cream and 2 sugars in my coffee, if you will.
Same as me.
Branna, she's one for just a dollop of the cream. Go ahead and fix her up. She's on her way down, and she'll need it.
She is? How do you—
Oh. He only smiled. She sends out fierce vibrations of a morning before her coffee, and it's a bit on the early side for her, so she may bite. Iona grabbed another cup, hurriedly poured the coffee. She was stirring in that dollop of cream when Branna walked in. Dark hair tumbled nearly to her waist, eyes blurry and annoyed. She took the cup Iona held out, took 2 deep swallows as she watched Iona over the rim.
All right, then. What happened?
Ah, now, don't poke at her, Connor said. She's had a rough go. Give her a chance to get some food into her. I doubt she's come here at dawn for breakfast. You're going to overcook those eggs, Connor, as always. I'm not. Slice up some bread for toasting, why don't you? And she'll tell us once she's settled.
She's standing right here,
Iona reminded them. At 6:30 in the bloody morning, Branna finished, but she picked up a bread knife, took a cloth off a loaf on a cutting board on the counter.
I'm sorry, but every second sentence she utters starts with those 2 words.
Branna sliced bread, tossed it into the toaster. Jesus, finish your coffee before your black mood ruins my appetite. Let's have some plates, Iona, there's a girl. His tone shifted from sharp to gentle as his sister leaned back against the counter and sulkily drank her coffee. Saying nothing, Iona got down plates and, at his direction, located the flatware, set the table. She sat with her cousins, looked at the platter heaped with bacon and eggs, the plate of toasted bread, listened to the 2 of them bicker about how the eggs were cooked, whose turn it was to go to the market, and why the laundry hadn't been folded.
My coming here like this put you at odds, so you're fighting, but
We're not fighting. Connor scooped up a forkful of eggs. Are we fighting, Branna? We're not. We're communicating. Then she laughed, tossed her magnificent hair, and bit into her toast. If we were fighting, more than these eggs would be scorched. They're not scorched, Connor insisted. They're firm.
They're good.
Branna rolled her eyes at Iona. You'd have eaten better at the hotel, be sure of it. The chef there is brilliant.
I wasn't thinking about food this morning. I can't just read books and stumble around trying to— I don't know what to do unless I know.
She's a bit of food in her now, Branna said to Connor. So, what happened?
I had a dream that wasn't a dream.
She told all of it, every detail she could remember, as carefully as she could manage.
Let me see your hand,
Branna interrupted. The one that bled. She took it, held it fast, while she traced fingertips over the back. The skin split, filled with blood.
Be still,
Branna snapped when Iona gasped and tried to pull free.
It's but a memory now. There's no pain. This is just the mirror of what was. It was real. It hurt, burned, and there was blood on the sheet.
Then yes, it was real. This is only a reflection. She traced her fingertips over it again, and the wound vanished.
I was pregnant. I mean, she was pregnant, in the vision or dream. He didn't know. He couldn't see it or feel it. I don't know which.
Agitated, Iona shoved at her hair with both hands.
I have to know, Branna. You said I needed to think carefully, but how can I when I don't have all the information?
It's twined close, Branna said, and got Connor's nod. And you're more open than I understood. I'll give you something to filter the visions. It may help you keep yourself a step back, we'll say. We'll guide you, Connor and I, best that we can, but we can't tell you what we don't know. If Tegan went alone back to the cabin, back to the woods, was confronted, you're the one telling us. We know pieces, Branna and I, and now you'll know more. We've both gone back, had glimpses, felt as you feel now. But we were only 2, Branna added. There must be 3. He was bolder with you, as you're more vulnerable. You won't stay that way, Connor assured her. It sounded ridiculous, but she had to say aloud what churned through her mind. Can he kill me? If I go back when I sleep, could he kill me? He could try, and likely will try. Branna answered the ridiculous with bald simplicity. You'll stop him. How? With your will, with your power, with the amulet you wear and must always wear, and with what I'll give you. Branna stopped pushing her eggs around her plate, picked up her coffee, and once again watched Iona over the rim. But understand, if you stay, if you mean to be with us, and be what you are, he will come for you. You must stay freely and knowing that, or go and live your life. It was all too fantastic, and yet she'd lived that dream, she'd felt the pain, and she knew the draw and pull of what lived inside her. Bridges burned, Iona reminded herself, for the chance to build new ones, wherever they led, and they'd already brought her closer to what and who she was than any of the ones before. I'm not leaving. You've had little time to think or understand, Branna began, but Iona only shook her head. I know I've never belonged anywhere before, and I think I understand this is why. Because I belong here. I come from her, from Tegan. I understand, too, she wanted me to see she hurt him that night, and he was afraid. Couldn't that mean I can hurt him? If it's here you belong, and I believe it is, then here you are. But don't rush your fences, Connor warned her and patted her hand. You've only begun. I'm an excellent rider with a damn good seat, and I'll learn. Teach me. She leaned closer as the urgency rose in her. Show me. Branna sat back. You haven't much patience. It depends. No, Iona admitted, not a lot. You'll need to find some, but we'll take some steps, small ones. Tell me about the cabin. They lived there. Sorka died there. Is it still there? There's a big tree uprooted, and these thick vines, and— Don't go there, Branna said quickly. Not yet, and not alone. She's right. You have to wait for that. You have to promise not to go through on your own. Connor gripped her hand, and she felt the heat pump against her palm. Your word on it, and I'll know if you mean to keep it. All right, I promise. But you'll take me. Not today, Branna told her. I have things I have to do, and Connor needs to go to work, and you need to go see Boyle. Now? After breakfast soon enough, and after you've washed up as payment for getting me out of my bed at this ungodly hour. Come back later. I should be done and ready by about 3. I'll be there. Settled, confident again, Iona helped herself to another piece of toast. 5. As she followed the path, Iona tried working on her interview skills. What to say, how to say it. She hoped she'd dressed appropriately, as she hadn't expected an immediate job interview when she'd left her hotel room that morning in jeans and her favorite red sweater. Still, she was aiming for a stable job, so she'd hardly need a business suit and a briefcase, neither of which she had anyway, she mused, or had ever wanted. What she did have was the resume she'd put together, the recommendation by her previous employers, all the references from her students or their parents. She didn't care what they paid her, not to start. She just needed a riding boot in the door. Then she could and would prove herself. And while she proved herself, she'd not only have work, she'd have the work she loved. Her stomach knotted, as it did when she wanted something too much, so she ordered herself not to babble when she met the man who could hire her or just send her on her way.
The minute she turned into the clearing, saw the building, the nerves dropped away. Here was the familiar, a kind of home. The shape of the stables and its weather-faded red paint, the two horses with their heads poking out of the half-doors, the trucks, the trailers scattered around the gravelled lot, the scents of hay, horses, manure, leather, oil, grain, caught at her heart. It all flooded over her as her boots crunched on the gravel. She couldn't help herself. She went straight to the horses. The chestnut held her gaze steadily, watching her approach. He snorted at her, shifted his weight. He bent his head when she stroked his cheek, then gave her an easy push with his nose. "It's nice to meet you, too. Look how handsome you are." Clear eyes, clean glossy coat, well-brushed mane, and a look of the easy-goer about him, she noted. Healthy, well-tended horses boosted the as-yet unmet Boyle McGrath and Finbar Burke in her estimation. "I'm hoping we'll be seeing a lot of each other. And who's your friend?" She turned to the second horse, a sturdy-looking bay who rubbed his neck on the window frame as if he wasn't the least bit interested in her. When she stepped toward him, he laid his ears back. Iona just angled her head, sent him soothing thoughts, until they perked up again. "That's better. No need to be nervous. I'm just here to say hello." She gave him a quick rub. "That's Caesar taking your measure there." Iona turned, saw the Amazon in riding boots behind her. The woman's curvy body filled out snug riding pants and a rough plaid jacket. Her hair, worn in a long, messy braid, reminded Iona of her grandmother's prized mink coat, rich and luxurious brown. Though Ireland sang in her voice, her golden skin and deep brown eyes spoke of sunny climes and gypsy campfires. "He generally likes to act fierce on first acquaintance, and can be shy about being touched. Usually," she added when Iona continued to stroke him. "He's just careful around strangers. Are they both trail horses?" "We save Caesar for experienced riders, but they both have a job here, yes." "I'm hoping I will, too. I'm Iona Sheehan. I've come to talk to Boyle McGrath." "I would be the Yank, a cousin of Connor's and Branna's. I'm Mara Quinn." She stepped forward, shook Iona's hand firmly, gave her a quick, no-nonsense appraisal. "You've come early today." "I'm still adjusting to the time change. I can come back if it's not a good time." "Oh, one time's as good as another. Boyle's not here, but will be soon enough. I can show you about if you'd like." "I would, thanks." Like Caesar's, Iona's nerves dropped away. "Have you worked here long?" "Oh, about 8 years. Closer to 9, I'm thinking. Well, who's counting, yeah." She led the way in, long strides on long legs that had Iona quickening her pace to keep up. Iona saw a room off to the side, jumbled and crowded with riding hats, leg protectors, some boots. A lean tabby sidled out, gave Iona a look as measuring as Mara's had been, then strolled outside. "That was Darby, who graces us with his presence. A fierce mouser is Darby, so we put up with his sullen moods. He earns his kibble and comes and goes as he pleases." "Nice work if you can get it." Mara grinned. "That's the truth. And so, we take bookings for rides, guide the customers between the Loch Corrib and Mask. Usually an hour, but we'll do longer if they ask and pay for it, and we have the training ring here." Iona walked in to watch a woman in her 30s on the back of a compact chestnut and the fire plug of a man in work jeans putting horse and rider through the paces. That's our Mick. A jockey he was in his youth, and has unlimited stories to tell about those days. I'd like to hear them. Be sure you will if you're here above 5 minutes. Mara set her hands on her hips, watched Mick a moment, letting Iona do the same. Took a bad fall, Mick did, in a race at Roscommon, and so ended that portion of his career. Now he teaches and trains, and his students collect blue ribbons. Sounds like you're lucky to have him. That we are. We've another area at the big stables, not far from here, for jumping practice and instruction. We cater to locals as well for lessons, and the occasional guided ride. We tend to run a bit slow this time of year, but there's plenty needs doing. We've 22 horses between what we keep here and what's at the other stable. The tack room's this way. She glanced over at Iona. We ride English, so if you're used to a Western saddle, you'll have to adjust. I ride both. That's handy for you. Boyle's fierce about keeping the tack in good order, she continued as she gestured Iona into the room. Those of us who work here do whatever comes to hand. Deal with the tack, take bookings, muck out, groom, feed. There's a board with each horse's feed schedule and diet hung outside their stalls. Have you done any guided rides? Back home, sure. Then you know it's more than plodding along with the clients. You need to judge how they handle the ride, the mount, and most who book here want some colour, if you understand me. Some talk of the area, the history, even flora and fauna. I'll study up. Actually, I've already done some. I like knowing where I am. Hard to know where you're going unless you do. I'm open to surprises there. Familiar scents surrounded her, leather and saddle soap. To most eyes, she imagined, the tack room would strike as cluttered and disorganized, but she saw the basic pattern, the day-to-day use, repair, maintain. Bridles hung on one wall, the saddles on their racks on another, harness racks on the third, with hooks and racks for bits and saddle pads, shelves for this and that, rags and brushes and saddle soaps and oils, and a kind of alcove for brooms, pitchforks, the curry combs, hoof picks, hooks again for buckets. She spotted an old refrigerator. Medicines in there, Mara told her, close and handy when there's need. We do what we can to keep it all reasonably tidy, and a time or two a year, when we're slow, we put some elbow grease into it. Would you have your own gear? I sold it. That had been painful. Except for my riding boots, my muck boots, riding helmet. I didn't know if I'd have any place to keep it, or even if I'd be able to use it, at least for a while. Do I need my own? You don't, no. Well, then, you'll want to see the horses we have here. We board as well, but at the big stable. Here we keep the riding hacks, and switch them out between here and there as needed. Mara walked and talked, more long strides in battered boots, as she led Iona to the stalls. We've a booking for 4 later this morning, and 2 more this afternoon, a party of 2 and another of 6. Lessons booked through the day, so we'll have a full house here. She stopped to rub the head of a sturdy chestnut with a white blaze. This is Maggie, as sweet as they come. She's good with children or the skittish. She's patient, is Maggie, and likes the quiet life. Don't you, darling? The mare nuzzled at Mara's shoulder, then dipped her head at Iona. Such a pretty face. After a rub and a scratch, Maggie bumped at Iona's pocket, made her laugh. I don't have any with me today. I'll be sure to bring along an apple next time. She's... Iona trailed off as she caught Mara's questioning look. What? Odd is all. Maggie has a particular fondness for apples. Leaving it at that, Mara gestured. And that's our Jack. He's a big boy and likes his naps, and will try to graze his way through the ride if he's able. Needs a firm hand. Like to eat and sleep, don't you? Who doesn't? I bet a big, strong boy like you can carry 300 without blinking an eye. He will that. And here we have Spud. He's young and feisty, but goes well. A dark horse. Iona moved over to run a hand down his black mane. With a weakness for potatoes. She caught the look again, used a smile. His name, Spud.
We'll use that one if you like. And here's Queen Bee, as she thinks she is. She basses the others every opportunity, but she likes a good ride. I wouldn't mind one myself. She's had some trouble with her right foreleg. A bit of a strain a week or so back, healed up nicely. If she told you different, she's just looking for sympathy. Unsure, Iona took a step back, slid her hands into her pockets. I'm not likely to get the jitters if someone shares a communion with horses, Mara commented, especially someone bloodkin to the O'Dwyers.
I'm good with them. Horses,
Iona qualified as she stroked the regal-eyed Queen Bee.
I'm hoping to work on getting good with the O'Dwyers.
Connor's an easy-goer with a weakness for a pretty face. You've got one. Branna's fair, and that's enough.
You're friends?
We are, and have been since we were in nappies, so I know Branna, being fair, wouldn't have sent you to us if you weren't suited.
I'm good at this. It's what I'm good at.
All she thought she was certain she was good at. You'll need to be. All my life, Mara said at Iona's questioning look, so I know it's the one who communes with horses who makes the tree. Iona thought of the looks from the waitstaff over dinner the night before.
Does everyone know?
What people know, what they believe, what they accept, those are all different matters, aren't they? Well then, since Boyle's running behind, we can— She broke off, pulled out her phone when it jingled in her pocket, checked the text. Ah, good, he's on his way. We'll just go out, if that's good for you, and meet him.
Her potential new boss, Iona thought. Any tips?
You could remember Boyle's fare as well, though he's often short on words and temper. Mara gestured Iona along as she shoved her phone away again. He's riding Finn's latest acquisition over. Finn's Boyle's partner, and travels about when he's a mind to, buying horses and hawks or whatever strikes his fancy.
But Boyle, Mr. McGrath, runs the stables.
He does, or they both do, but it's Boyle who deals more with the day-to-day.